I appreciate that Katie Porter has had a few situations recently with regard to her bid for the Senate in California, which obviously Adam Schiff took. But we can't lose sight of the fact that Katie Porter is an extremely competent, confident representative, like really, really good. You just get the idea. She's always on the side, as far as I see it, as the underdog. Like, this is something that should be championed, and I just hope the fact that she's been silent recently isn't a sign that she is, I don't know, considering walking away from politics or anything like that. Katie Porter, again, just one of the best.
Dr. Rajgopal, first, can you straighten your microphone out? Let me just be very clear. Bend it like this so it's dead straight towards your mouth. Thank you. As far as I can tell, and I'm really on the struggle bus here, what Republicans seem to want is they don't want companies or investment managers to use ESG. Why?
Ask them. I don't know. I would imagine, as I said earlier, you know, if there are signals that inform your view of future cash flows and risks, as a fiduciary, you would actually fail in your responsibility if you didn't look at those signals.
Right. So, I mean, investment managers have fiduciary duties to make good investments. If they find ESG useful, then they find ESG useful. And if you disagree with them and you think they're mismanaging your money, sue them. What am I missing here?
Or short the stock. You don't even have to sue them, right? I mean, if you have a view that just short the stock, make money, you can be an activist, right? That's how capital markets work, and that's where the discipline comes from.
Right. So I'm really struggling here to understand what Republicans want to have happen. Are they, from your understanding here, it seems like what they want is they want companies to do things that they like. I too, by the way, would like companies to do things that I like. And I sometimes choose to invest in companies whose practices I like more. But Ms. McClain, my colleague on the other side of the aisle, is saying that if companies want to use ESG, they should be free to do it. Did you hear her say that?
I thought so, yeah.
Then what is the point of this hearing? I too, I'm with Ms. McClain. I think companies should be free to decide for themselves whether ESG practices are beneficial to their bottom line and their business model and help them attract customers or don't. I too think that asset managers should be free to decide that ESG data helps them make good valuation decisions and good investment decisions. And if they don't, they should be able to ignore it. I honestly, I can't believe this is part two of when part one was actually the stupidest hearing I've ever been to, and now we're having a part two. Please, God, let there not be a part three. Dr. Rajgopal, is it better for pension fund managers to have more options for investing people's retirement savings, or is it better if they have fewer options?
More, obviously.
What is a pension fund manager's primary responsibility?
To make sure that they can deliver a return commensurate with the pension benefits that have actually been promised to their workers.
Great. Will limiting pension fund managers' investment options increase retirement savings?
Not that I can think of.
But that's, and by the way, you are not just thinking about it. The Kansas Division of Budget did a study. They found that limiting pension fund managers' investment options would cost the retirement system $3.6 billion in reduced returns over 10 years. When we cut off companies and asset managers from choices, investors lose money. We are sacrificing the freedom to invest, and we are all poorer. We're poorer because we have fewer choices, And we're literally poorer because we have lower returns. In 2021, the Texas state government passed a law prohibiting municipalities from signing loans with banks that they believe boycott fossil fuel companies, I believe also guns. Is it better for municipalities to have more options for loans or fewer options for loans?
It's a simple supply-demand kind of issue. If you cut off a few suppliers of a product or a service, and if demand stays constant, the price of that good or service goes up.
Thank you. I yield back. Was that my recognition? Okay, Ms. Porter. All right. Mr. Lohmeyer, do you agree with President Trump's executive order 9981?
Well,
Excuse me, President, I'm so sorry.
You'll have
Let me
to
start
explain
again.
what you mean. I don't know
Let me start again.
executive orders by number.
Do you agree with President Truman's order that integrated the armed services despite the fact that separate but equal was still the law of the land at the time?
Let me say that this is an important point. The congressman to your left has said he wanted to find common ground. There's a lot of what the general has said today that I don't disagree with whatsoever, but that seems to me irrelevant to the discussion of progressivism as an ideology in the military workplace. Let me point out one example in answer to your question of what I am opposed to. Reintroduction of segregation,
We're claiming my time,
which
Mr.
is
Lohmeyer.
a
We're claiming my
direct
time.
consequence
Mr. Chair, it's my time.
of DEI initiatives. We've got
Mr. Chair, I'd like to
commanders who are
reclaim my
reintroducing
time.
segregation because of DEI, and I'm happy to talk to that.
Mr. Lohmeyer, I'm going to try again. Do you agree? I appreciate that you have opinions and you're entitled to have them, but I'd like you to try to answer the question I'm asking with respect, sir. Do you agree with President Truman's Executive Order 9981 that integrated the armed services despite the fact that separate but equal was still the law of the land at the time?
I agree that the military has led the way in integration and unity, which has been the strength of the United States military, but we're undoing it all with diversity, equity, and
reclaiming my
policies.
time. That decision was progressive at the time. In other words, the military went to a place of integration and efforts to have black and white soldiers working alongside each other. It wasn't always perfect, it wasn't always easy, but it was literally the definition of progress and progressive. It went beyond existing law. General, did Truman's actions to integrate the military under EO 9981 lead directly to any readiness deficits? You're a military historian.
No, in fact, the first thing it did, Congresswoman, was integrate Arlington National Cemetery.
Mr. Boebert, you were in active duty, and thank you for your service, Air Force officer in 2010. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Were there any big problems in military readiness in 2010?
As a young flyer, I never paid attention to what you folks were doing. I never paid attention to reports on readiness, lethality. I simply focused on a mission. It was learning how to fly an aircraft, and at that time, it was training our allied partners and foreign military pilots how to fly jets.
Well, I'm glad, Mr. Lohmeyer, that you were able to focus on your military duties. And it seems to me that your own testimony here is a really good example of the fact that the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell did not cause a disruption in your ability or the military readiness of the Air Force to do its job. General, is there any empirical evidence that gay Americans serving openly has hurt military readiness?
No.
So historically, when the military has been progressive, has gone beyond where other policies may be, has tried to encourage diversity or welcome people to be diverse and to learn about each other, there has been no harm to force readiness. General, could one consider President Truman's executive action a diversity initiative? Right, General Truman's, why am I having so much trouble with this? General, could one consider President Truman's executive action a diversity initiative?
Yes.
How about the 2010 repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell?
Yes.
So, in your view, should the military roll back those diversity policies?
Absolutely not.
Mr. Thibault, do you think the military should roll back those initiatives?
No, Congresswoman, I don't, because the integration of the armed forces in 1948 was a recognition that the military is different from society, and so it should march to the beat of a different drum. And that's why I think it was such a good policy, because it ensured that we had the best. That things changed in 1960 when the military became a beacon for affirmative action and quotas. But I agree with you that it was good policy in 1948.
Okay. And do you have would you repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell?
No, because it's a means by which the military attracts the best talent. But what I would object to is if the military had a quota for LGBT Americans.
Do they?
On the books. Not that I know of, but they do for Black, white, Hispanic Americans, and I think those are...
General, is that correct? I'm not aware. My brother served. He went to the United States Naval Academy. He served 5 years. He served on a nuclear submarine. I don't recall him ever enforcing, being part of, as an officer, any type of quota system.
There are no quota systems, Congresswoman.
I don't recall that being U.S. military policy. I don't remember ever passing a law, since we're in Congress and we make the rules. I don't remember ever passing a law with regard to that. Our military is more effective when it's diverse, and you can't have an effective, diverse team without teaching people how to work effectively together. That's what these initiatives should focus on. I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Porter.
In Washington, the same game is played year after year. The president requests a massive defense budget. Lawmakers don't want to be seen as soft on national security, and defense lobbyists exploit that. Congress then falls into line and passes an expensive defense package. And then we do the same thing again the next year. That's the game that lawmakers and lobbyists play with our tax dollars. Today, we are going to play a new game. Welcome to Jeopardy! DOD, where our witnesses will uncover waste, missing guardrails, and the enablers who make our defense budget balloon. Witnesses, you'll pick a category and a point amount. I'll read you a prompt, and just like in regular Jeopardy, you'll give the answer in the form of the question. For example, if I read, the Congresswoman hosting Jeopardy! DOD, you will say, who is Katie Porter? Let's get started. Mr. Tenaglia. Enablers for 100. A president who called how much we spend on defense crazy, but let defense spending grow by over $100 billion in one term.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Really? You don't know who called the defense budget crazy? Who is Donald Trump? Mr. Mansfield.
Enablers for 200.
Enablers for 200. A member of Senate leadership who recently said funding the Pentagon at $886 billion would mean defense is radically underfunded.
I don't know the answer.
Who is Mitch McConnell? Mr. Khan, you can easily be the winner here.
I'll take waste for 300.
Great choice. Waste for 300. Ineffective DoD assets that cost about $600 million to build and are now being decommissioned before the end of their useful life.
I'm drawing a blank there. Sorry.
What are littoral combat ships? You're familiar with this program. Mr. Tenaglia.
Enablers for 300.
Pardon me?
Enablers for 300.
Enablers for 300. Individuals who get rich while pushing to overspend our tax dollars.
I don't know.
Who are defense lobbyists? Mr. Mansfield.
Waste for 200.
Waste for 200. I'm really counting on you here, Mr. Mansfield. A program that is $183 billion over budget and 10 years behind schedule.
What is the Joint Strike Fighter Program?
What is the what?
Is it the Joint Strike Fighter Program?
What? That's correct. What is The F-35 program, correct. Mr. Khan?
Missing guardrails for 200.
Missing guardrails for 200. The institution that has authorized more defense spending than the president requested for the current fiscal year. Who has authorized more defense spending than the president requested for this current 2023 fiscal year?
I would say it's the Armed Services Committee.
We'll give you that. Who is? Congress. Mr. Tenaglia, I'd really love to see you get one right here. I'm rooting for you.
Missing guardrails for 100.
Missing guardrails for 100. This one I think you're going to know. A review that every agency has passed except the DOD.
What is an audit?
What is an audit? Correct. Mr. Mansfield.
We'll go with missing guide rails for 300.
Missing guardrails for 300. This is a really good one. The percentage of DOD's assets that it cannot account for.
61%.
61%.
What is 61%?
Huh?
What is 61%?
What is 61%? So I read the question wrong. The percentage of DOD assets that it can account for is 39%. You're right. Cannot account for 61%. Can account for 39. All right, Mr. Khan.
Is that double jeopardy? I'll take
Yes.
100.
This is it. Waste for 100. DOD assets that have been lost, damaged, or destroyed to the tune of millions of dollars based on a May GAO report. What are spare aircraft parts? We're out of time for Jeopardy DOD, and the winner here today should be the American people. Because no matter who uncovers the most waste, the important thing is that we provide long overdue oversight to the taxpayers. Look, politicians and lobbyists play the same spending game year after year, and that is not getting us to a responsible defense budget. Nobody's going to
Mr.
win
Fallon.
until we start playing a new game. I yield back. I'd like to start by recognizing a Postal Service letter carrier in my district named B. Lee. For 38 years, B has connected constituents to their essential medicines, ballots, notes from loved ones. With so many hospitals and medical offices on her route, she is proud that her work helps keep our communities healthy and safe. As we discuss ways to improve the federal workforce, I want us all to remember that federal employees are dedicated public servants and valued members of our communities. I thank my constituent B for her years of service to Orange County. Second, I want to take up a partial response to what my colleague, Ms. Boebert, was discussing. VPN, she mentioned an article alleging that 25% of HHS employees did not actually telework. And I just want to flag for everyone here that VPN and using VPN login as a way to measure employee engagement and productivity is notoriously inaccurate and misleading. It does not necessarily reflect an employee's access to their email, the internet. They can be working on Microsoft Word, drafting a document. They can be in Excel, inputting data without being connected to the internet at all, much less to VPN. It also fails to reflect the work of the thousands of doctors, researchers, scientists, and other HHS employees who spend much of their time working in the field, not logged onto a computer. I now like to turn to an area that I've worked on before, which is...
Would my colleague just real quick re-yield?
Real quick.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if VPN is required, by
Correct.
the way. Thank you.
Correct. I want to turn to an issue I've worked on before, which is wildland firefighter classification. We know that wildfire in California get worse and worse each year. We don't even talk about a season anymore. It's an all-year-round risk. And we owe our wildland firefighters debts of gratitude for what they do. Director, would you agree that achieving equity across the wildland firefighter workforce is an important goal?
Absolutely, Congresswoman.
So we should expect that wildland firefighters who do the same work to have the same job descriptions, pay, benefits, et cetera. Would you agree?
Yes, I would.
Okay, so as you know, the bipartisan infrastructure law directed coordination between OPM and the Departments of Interior and Agriculture on developing a distinct job series for federal wildland firefighters. And the goal here is to accurately describe their duties and what they should be paid for the hard work that they do. Last June, OPM issued guidance for developing this job series, which includes employees in the Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, Fish and Wildlife, Bureau of Indian Affairs, and National Park Service, 5 agencies. Is OPM facilitating interagency coordination on this classification process to make sure that it's completed properly and fairly?
Thank you, Congresswoman. We are. We helped with the, like you mentioned, the job series, and now we're working through the classification, the occupation series, and now working through the classification aspect of it.
And you feel that OPM is would you characterize your role here as hands-on in helping the agencies come to consistent descriptions?
Absolutely. We do see that as our role to ensure continuity. We also want to make sure that we see as our role to ensure there's a career path and trajectory for firefighters.
Wonderful, because we don't want the U.S. Forest Service to end up short of people because BLM has a different classification. We want all of these agencies to have the ability to have trained and skilled wildland firefighters to keep us all safe. Can you talk a little bit about whether you have worked with federal wildland firefighters directly to get their input to make sure that what the agencies are doing, what those in Washington or field offices might be doing, matches what's happening on the ground, the challenges that our firefighters are facing?
Absolutely, Congresswoman. We have what I would hope is a good relationship with the associations and unions that support the firefighters. I had the opportunity to meet them in person and hear firsthand about just some really challenging stories about how they're managing just their livelihood with the current pay. And so we want to ensure, as a part of our role, not only this occupation, but to ensure that the pay is a permanent feature that's now through the BIL, but will expire soon.
Wonderful. I just want to encourage OPM to continue taking a leadership role so that we don't have agencies acting kind of independently and leave the wildland firefighters with the short end of the stick here. I want to use my remaining time. Has OPM, we hear so much about the costs of federal employees, the costs of their wages, the costs of their benefits. Has OPM formally studied the costs of recruiting and training for when employees leave? Can we weigh the cost of paying an existing trained, qualified, excellent employee, which we hear a lot about? What does it cost us when that person leaves to get a new person and to train them to the same level?
Absolutely. There are significant costs when it comes to recruitment and also retention, the knowledge that you've lost and getting that person up to speed, Congresswoman. I do know that there have been a documentation at individual agencies. I'd have to check to see if our agency has done something across government.
I would really encourage that as a way of making sure we have all of the data so that we can come to the right conclusions as we think about workforce issues. So I would encourage you to think about how to make that more of an initiative and how to coordinate that data across agencies. I thank Mr. Chairman and yield back.
Lady yields back. Chair recognizes Mr. Burleson from Missouri for 5 minutes.
Thank you. First, I want to say you look very healthy for someone that was up until 3 a.m. last night. Thank you, Director, for coming. I wanted to say it's clear from this hearing